Picture this. You're a Roman citizen in the year 41 AD, standing in a crowded marketplace, haggling over the price of bread that's somehow gotten more expensive again. Someone leans in and whispers that the emperor tried to make his horse a consul last week. You laugh, because surely that's a joke. It's not a joke. Nothing about the next 4 centuries is going to be a joke. You just don't know that yet. You go home, you eat dinner, you go to sleep thinking Rome is eternal, the greatest empire the world has ever seen. Unshakable. Spoiler alert, it is not. Oh, hey there. I'm your host, Dead, Mildly Disrespectful, and apparently now moonlighting as a Roman historian because you people keep asking for this one. Today, we're talking about the emperors who took the most powerful empire in human history and slowly, methodically, sometimes hilariously, ran it into the ground. Not one death this time, a whole collapse, spread out over roughly 435 years, one bad decision at a time. Let's find out how you build the greatest civilization on Earth and then let a series of increasingly unhinged men in togas dismantle it from the inside. Before we get into the bodies, let's play a quick game. I'm going to say something about Rome's fall and you tell me true or false. Ready? Round 1. Rome fell because of one single event, one battle, one bad emperor. True or false? False. Rome didn't fall. It was worn down over centuries by dozens of terrible decisions stacked on top of each other, like a Jenga tower built by people who kept adding weight to the top instead of removing pieces. Round 2. Every emperor on this list was a bloodthirsty maniac twirling a mustache. True or false? Also false. Some of these guys were just incompetent. Some were teenagers who had no business running anything more complicated than a chariot. And some were perfectly fine rulers who happened to make one catastrophic call that undid everything. Round 3. The Roman Empire actually ended twice. True or false? True. The West collapsed in 476 AD. The East, what we call the Byzantine Empire, limped on for almost another 1,000 years before it finally died too. Rome didn't fall once. It died a long, slow, two-part death, and today we're covering both halves. All right, let's talk about how an empire actually dies, because it's not that different from how a body dies. Think of Rome as one massive organism. The Senate is the brain, making decisions, or at least trying to. The legions are the muscles, keeping everything moving and defended. The treasury is the blood supply, and the provinces are the organs, each one doing its job, feeding resources back to the core. Now imagine that organism getting stabbed, not once, but over and over, for 4 centuries by the people who were supposed to be running it. Every mad emperor is a wound, every purged senator is dead brain tissue, every drained treasury is blood loss, and just like a body, an empire can survive 1 or 2 wounds. It can even survive a dozen. What it can't survive is wound after wound after wound with no time to heal in between. That's Rome. That's what we're walking through today. So let's go stage by stage. Year 37 AD, Caligula takes the throne at 24 years old, gets sick, and comes out the other side convinced he's a literal god. He builds temples to himself, burns through a treasury surplus historians estimate at nearly 2.7 billion sesterces in a single year, and starts executing senators because they annoyed him at dinner. The horse thing is real, by the way, or at least the threat of it was. 4 years later, the Praetorian Guard gets tired of his nonsense and stabs him to death. First wound, Rome survives, but it's bleeding. Skip ahead to 54 AD. Nero takes over, and depending on who you ask, either start the Great Fire of Rome or just conveniently blames it on Christians and uses the smoking ruins to build himself a 300-acre pleasure palace. He murders his own mother by sinking her ship, then finishes the job with a knife when that doesn't work. He kills both his wives. He executes anyone standing between him and their money. By 68 AD, revolts force him to end his own life. Second wound, deeper than the first. Now, fast forward past a few decades of relative peace, because even a dying body has good days, to 180 AD, when Commodus takes the throne after his father, one of Rome's genuinely competent rulers, dies. Commodus renames the city after himself. He renames all 12 months after his own titles. He fights as a gladiator over 700 times, charging the treasury for the privilege of watching himself kill lions and ostriches in the arena. His wrestling partner eventually strangles him to death in 192 AD, and Rome, descends into the year of the 5 emperors, a 12-month stretch of chaos where the throne changes hands so fast the Praetorian Guard actually auctions off the entire empire to the highest bidder like it's a used car. That's not a metaphor. That happened. By the early 200s, Caracalla murders his own brother in their mother's arms, then kills up to 30,000 of his brother's supporters just to be thorough. Elagabalus takes the throne at 14, tries to replace Jupiter with his own personal god, bankrupts the treasury on parties so extravagant that ancient sources claim he suffocated guests under mountains of rose petals for entertainment. He's murdered at 18, his body dragged through the streets. Rome is now hemorrhaging faster than it can clot. Then comes the part where things get genuinely dark. Valerian, captured alive by the Persians in 260 AD, allegedly used as a human footstool so the enemy king could mount his horse and reportedly skinned alive after death. His remains stuffed and displayed as a trophy for centuries. That's not a metaphor either. A Roman emperor became furniture. The empire fractures into 3 competing pieces under Gallienus. And for a while, there isn't really one Rome anymore. There's 3 sad little Romes wearing a trench coat. The western half never really recovers after that. Honorius, a boy emperor more concerned with his pet chicken than the actual city of Rome, watches the Visigoths sack the capital in 410 AD, the first time it had happened in 800 years. Valentinian III personally murders his own best general in a jealous rage in 454 AD, a general who happened to be the one man still capable of holding the barbarians back. 6 months later, Valentinian is dead too, and the Vandals sail in to finish what he started. And finally, in 476 AD, a teenage placeholder emperor with the tragically ironic name Romulus Augustus, Little Emperor, named after the man who founded Rome, gets quietly deposed by a Germanic chieftain. No battle, no blaze of glory, just a shrug and a changing of the guard. 500 years of empire ends not with an explosion, but with a whimper. The eastern half, the Byzantine half, keeps limping along for centuries after that, picking up its own collection of horrors along the way. Phocas murders an emperor and his 5 sons to seize the throne, then spends 8 years torturing anyone who looks at him funny while the Persians march in and take Jerusalem. Justinian II gets his nose sliced off by political rivals, gets exiled, somehow comes back wearing a golden prosthetic nose, and spends his second reign taking violent revenge on literally everyone involved. And finally, in 1453, Constantine XI, arguably one of the more decent men on this entire list, faces 80,000 Ottoman troops with 7,000 defenders and dies fighting in the streets. His body never identified. His last words, reportedly, "The city has fallen and I am still alive." And with that, the Roman Empire, in every form it had ever taken, is finally completely gone. So, what did it actually feel like to live through this? Not as an emperor, as a regular person, like you'd have been in that marketplace. It felt like slowly realizing the ground under your feet was never as solid as you thought. Every generation had its own crisis, its own mad ruler, its own moment where the treasury emptied or the legions turned or the barbarians got a little closer. No single person alive during the fall of Rome actually watched the whole thing happen. It took too long. You'd live your entire life under one bad emperor, die, and your grandchildren would inherit the next one. It wasn't a single tragedy. It was a slow, generational erosion. The kind you only notice if you zoom out 400 years and watch it all at once, which is exactly what we just did. Quick reality check. At its height, the Roman Empire covered roughly 2 million square miles and controlled the lives of an estimated 70 million people, about a fifth of the entire world's population at the time. It took centuries to build that kind of power and roughly the same amount of time to lose it, which honestly should tell you something about how empires work in general. Historians still argue about the real causes: economic collapse, military overextension, political corruption, plague, climate shifts, take your pick, because the truth is it was never just one thing. It was dozens of wounds that never got the chance to heal. So there you have it. Every evil, incompetent, or just plain unlucky emperor who helped drag the greatest empire in history into the ground. The good news, if you can call it that, is that nothing lasts forever, not even the thing that felt eternal to the people living inside it. The bad news is we've apparently learned nothing because empires keep making the same mistakes. So maybe appreciate whatever stable, boring system you're living under right now. It's doing better than Rome did. Got a way you want to explain next? Drop it in the comments. I'm dead. I've got time.